Hi book lovers, my name is Christina and welcome back to Cozy Novel Niche. Today I'm here with, again, one more review. I know that they're not like the most popular kind of videos on BookTube, but I still love watching them, and so I love making them for myself. And today I'm here with a very special book. At least it was quite special for me. This is a book that I will for sure keep. If I have to rate it, it will be probably a 5-star for me, and it is Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand. This is a middle grade book. I think that it can be classified like that, and it's somewhere in between magical realism and just fiction and maybe a little bit of fantasy. It's a bit strange, but I will try to explain you a little bit more about it. So in this book we are following our main protagonist, who is 11 years old. Her name is Finley, and she has to move to her grandparents' house because her parents are facing some troubles, and they want her to go to the grandparents for the duration of the summer vacations because they have to figure some things out for themselves. And so the very first things that you get from the beginning is that she doesn't really know her grandparents. She's never been to that house, she's never met them, and her parents are actually having some major issues. Probably we're talking about maybe a potential divorce or something like that. So this girl has a wild imagination, and she always writes in this notebook about the stories of the Everwood. And the Everwood is this mystical woods where a lot of magical creatures live, and she imagines herself living there and living adventures there. There are witches and fairies and pirates and whatnot, and this is kind of her special place. And when she arrives at her grandparents' house, she sees that outside the house there is this amazing wood, and she immediately understands that that's exactly the Everwood she always dreamed of and she was writing about. And so she ends up associating her magical land with that place. And the story starts that easily. So she needs to kind of really meet and get to know her grandparents, and they live in this big house where the whole family gathers together. So she has 3 aunts and a lot of cousins, and they're of different ages, and she needs to meet them and become friends with them and get to know them. But it's not that easy. There are some secrets in that family, and she really tries to figure out what happened, why she never met them, what's wrong with it. But at the same time she wants to explore the woods and live these magical adventures with her cousins, who she tries to kind of get into the game and get them to play with her and to understand that kind of narrative that she is bringing to them. And I have some issues in explaining more about this book because I don't want to get this video to be too spoilery, but I also have to warn you. First of all, it's, yes, a middle grade book, so it's amazingly okay for younger, for children to read. But in this book there are discussions about depression and anxiety, and they are raw, but at the same time they are explained in such a way that a child can understand and relate to. So this is not to say that you have to shelter your child from reading this book. I believe that this is an amazingly important book to read with your child, or to let your child read this book, or your young adult child, whatever. It doesn't matter the age really, but if you're in a bad headspace, like you yourself, just read it with caution. It's it's a lovely book in its way. It is cozy in its way. I definitely associate it. I'm a mood reader, and my moods often follow like the season shift. And I definitely associate this book with the shift in between summer and autumn, so it was perfect to read in September/October. This is a book that has happiness in it, but also sadness, and it tries to unpack and discover what it means to be sad in that way, like when you have maybe depression or maybe not. So the character is also discovering that, and this is a very precious book. I believe you have the feeling of a family coming together, you have the feeling of growing up, and all of the difficulties that we're facing when we are becoming teenagers. So there are some new things for us, and we don't exactly know how to face them, and we don't have all of the tools to face them yet, but we're learning, and we're discovering that our families can just kind of help us to face certain things. But sometimes we have to face our family and make them learn new things and make them understand us. So I think that it's a very lovely book. Again, it's not exactly fantasy. There is that aspect of fantasy, that our main protagonist, and we spend all of the book in her head. So sometimes it's a happy place and sometimes it's a sad place, but it's always well explained. And we follow her and her adventures and what she imagines and what is the reality, and there is an overlapping in between her imagination and what is happening in reality. So it's kind of also a metaphor that helps you understand better certain things and certain aspects. And the lovely thing in this book is that at the end of it, it actually has a bunch of questions that you may answer to, because this book is thought to be a book for a reading group, for example, or to be read in a class. So it's amazing for a class too. If you're a teacher at school, this is a great book to read because it really helps you to unpack everything. Plus, it has some moments that really made me feel like I could be thinking those things. And like, for example, there was this piece, and I'm an introvert. I'm a huge introvert, and reading this made me feel heard. It says, I start to worry that it should be saying something. Most of the time I think I could be perfectly content without saying a single word. But no one else seems to function that way. There is so much talking in the world, and so much expectation to talk, even if you do not feel like talking. I find it overwhelming. And sometimes it's how I feel. I don't always feel like talking. I don't feel the need to kind of occupy all of the silent space with words. Sometimes silence is amazing. I truly believe it. It can be healing, it can be cozy, it can be a lot of things, but our society is kind of afraid of silence, I believe. So this is something that I related to. And then there is that other part that said, I suppose most things in a person's life are good for a while, even if that doesn't last very long. Maybe that is why, even after something has gone wrong, we spend so much time trying to fix it, because we remember when it wasn't broken. I think that's very deep and a very lovely thing to think about and to understand why we try sometimes so hard for some things, because we cherish the memory of when it was different. And this book is full of little moments like that. And I really fell in love with the characters in this book. They are all flawed, they are all real life like people. So it really feels like you're meeting a family, maybe a family member of your family can be related to one of these characters. And there was this impending sense of doom and secrecy and something a little bit darker that makes me think about autumn, and it was related to the family secret and also to the woods. So it was also an adventure to read this book. I always felt a little bit on the edge of my seat while I was reading it. So I definitely recommend this book, but just be cautious, because if you're not in the best headspace, you maybe want to read it more slowly and take your time. And if you're reading it with a child, you maybe there for the child and help them if they have questions. So that's the only thing that I want to kind of warn you about, but otherwise it's an amazing read, I guess. I don't have children, I'm not a professional teacher, so I'm not exactly like a teacher for younger students, so I don't know what can be the educational value of this book, but I feel that it can be very important. So give it a try, read it, and see for yourself if you enjoy it as much as I did. Again, thank you so much for watching this video and this review. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you liked it, consider the idea of leaving a like down below or subscribing to my little channel if you're not subscribed yet. And again, thank you so much, and I will see you very, very soon in my next video. Bye! Ciao!